Welcome to Early Research Stories, the podcast that brings you inspiring stories from diverse voices in the world of learning and instruction. Join us as we dive into the latest trends, research breakthroughs, and insights shaping the field today. Hosted by Chris Castro, Rachel Shanks, and Leonie Johan, this is your inside look at the heart of educational research.
Welcome, I am Chris Castro and we are with the EARLI SIG28 coordinators. SIG, remember, it's Special Interest Group. So we are today with the EARLI SIG28 coordinators, Antonia Zachariou from the University of Limassol, Valeska Grau, Cárdenas from the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, and their jure coordinator, Pablo Torres, also from the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. We're here today to talk about their common research interest and life decisions to become researchers and SIG28 coordinators. A little personal note here, I also studied at the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile 30 years ago, so has been a long time now. Okay, so this SIG28 is focused on play, learning and development and is hosting their second SIG conference this year. Antonia, Valeska and Pablo, thank you for accepting our invitation.
Hello from my side as well. I'm Leonie Johan. So we always start with asking our participants a bit about their academic path. So how did you actually end up being where you are?
Thank you. My name is Antonia. I'm at the University of Limassol here in Cyprus, and I'm saying this because I was brought up in Cyprus. I went to a publicly funded, like a state-funded, let's say, school for primary school, high school, and then I went to the University of Cyprus for my bachelor's degree in educational sciences. So towards the end of that degree, I started thinking about doing a master's degree, and I knew I was going to do the master's degree in the UK. I ended up applying to different universities and then being accepted into the University of Cambridge, where I did my master's in psychology and education. And then I found it so interesting studying children's play and learning and development, which was under the supervision of Dr. David Whitebread, that I decided to continue for a PhD there at the University of Cambridge. And I looked into musical play and self-regulation.
That sounds very exciting. I see Pablo and Valeska nodding. So Pablo, maybe you can continue.
Yeah, sure. In my case, I went into research sort of by chance, I guess. Well, when I was studying psychology, so I studied psychology as an undergrad, there was like I wouldn't say an uprising, but like a strong education movement in Chile in 2006. And I happened to be part of the kind of student committee at the time, and I was the academic delegate. So I organized a lot of talks and assemblies regarding what was happening in Chile. And then I knew I wanted to follow the educational path within psychology because it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And I think it was a right decision for me. One thing led to the other, and I ended up being in New Zealand for a year, a gap year that I made up for myself, my first sabbatical. And I just knocked doors there in the schools because I was really intrigued. So how do these, countries that are really high performing do it? How do they manage to get so good results? So I knocked some doors there in the schools, and I went into be a TA for like 6 months. I just working for free. I did other things like, bar attendance in the evenings to sustain myself. And there I learned how kind of motivated the students were, like how they just love learning. And I thought, my God, it would be so good to just try to support this in my country. Yeah. After that, I did my ed psychology year. I went back to Chile. I finished my studies. And somebody said, hey, why do you want to contribute in one publication we are doing? And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is, but sure. I mean, if you think I can do something. And that's how I got sort of supported. And somebody said, oh, you seem to have like some sort of academic side of you. So why don't you keep researching? And then everything has started. So I did the PhD and now I'm an assistant professor here.
Valeska, could you please give us an insight into your path?
Yes, well, I think like Pablo, I came into research by chance. I wasn't planning that for myself, like for my career. I started studying psychology. Here in Chile, you have more professional degrees, so they are longer. So I came to study psychology here at the Catholic University, and also because I'm the first person to graduate from university in my family, I didn't know what was a PhD. But being here at the university, I started to become involved in different research projects and also becoming more aware of the educational and social inequalities and how unfair was the situation here. And that motivated me to pursue that more research in education, more than in clinical psychology, for example. From then on, well, I did a master here right after I finished my undergraduate. And I keep being research assistant. And then at some point, somebody told me about you have like the profile of someone that could go and do a PhD overseas. And then I started to look, and I wrote to David Whitebread, and he answered to me straight away. And after finishing my PhD, David was more interested in Play too. So we did some projects together once I was back in Chile.
Thank you. Some different paths, but also there's this commonality that someone, I'm guessing a mentor, a more advanced in the career, they saw potential in you and they told you, okay, why you go from professional to something else, a PhD, a master's, more research. So that's very important for all of us, mentors in how they help building our careers. So I want to have a little more insight on these mentors and role models in your careers, how they shape your current research interests.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I think there have been some very important times where they see something in you and they ask you, why wouldn't you follow this path? In my case, it happened when I was doing my final year of undergrad. We had to write an essay, which is not the common thing to do in Chile. And after I wrote this, the person in charge of the whole group, there were 20 of us, she said, you write really well. She said, have you considered, studying overseas? And that was like the first time somebody said this to me. And so, yeah, that started my curiosity about it. And then I had my first professional job in the university. I was kind of in a study unit for the teacher evaluation system in Chile. I kind of by the second year of it, I realized this is going to be the same every year, and I don't want this. So I said to my boss, what about I do actually a proper research, like not just studies to validate the instruments, but something that is a bit further, that validates them, but does something a bit more, right? Yeah. And he said, yeah, sure. I see you are struggling with this repetition kind of job. So why don't you have this as a side project? And then I did my first piece of research basically then. And at the same time, somebody else called me, right, and said, hey, you seem to have some ability there. Can you help me write this paper? And so, yeah, people kind of encouraged you, right? And see something in you. And I think that's key.
Valeska, can you tell us about mentors?
Yeah, well, I think I had a mentor that really sort of changed the path in that way, because as I was saying, I didn't know what it was a PhD. I didn't see myself as a researcher at all. And I was teacher assistant in a sort of developmental psychology course. And this professor invited me to participate as a research assistant in a research project. And he said, I feel that you have that in you, the rigorosity, and sort of you are careful with people and with data. And I think you could be very good at it. I was about third year, I think, at university. And he started to tell me, okay, I wrote a paper. Can you maybe read it for me and criticize it? And I was feeling like that all these things were too big for me. How can I criticize the paper of a professor at the university? But then you raise to the expectation in a way, you say, well, I'll do it. And you study a lot and you read it 10 times and you start feeling that maybe you can do it. And I think that what you say, it's very important, because especially for people like me that came from an area or from a family that wasn't an academic, and you feel more far away from your lecturers. I mean, there were a lot of students, they were coming from private schools, and the parents know other people. They feel closer to the lecturers in a way, and they feel close. I mean, they feel more entitled to talk to them after the class. I didn't feel any of that. If that professor didn't came to me and asked me, do you want to be part of my research project, I wouldn't have asked ever.
Yeah, the first generation gap. Yeah.
Mhm.
Antonia, what about you?
So I think in a very similar way, I was quite low profile during my undergraduate years, perhaps too low profile, in the sense that my grades were good, but I wasn't approached to do anything, extra. But what really helped was that I had a friend who had a cousin who had done their PhD at Cambridge. And I'm really grateful to that friend because she was open about the fact that she was going to go and study, apply and study at Cambridge and do her PhD. And that's where I got the idea. It had never crossed my mind that I could apply to Cambridge. So I thought, oh, maybe I could also apply. I wasn't going for a PhD, but I decided to apply, and I applied, and I got, to my huge surprise, I got accepted. And then I think the aha moment was when I started doing my master's thesis. My supervisor, again, Dr. David Whitebread, he started insisting that I think you should do a PhD on this. And I was adamant that there's no way I'm doing a PhD. I'm only here in the UK for a year. I'm going to go back. I'll become a teacher, as was always the plan. And that's actually what I did. And then a couple of months after returning home, I was like, oh, maybe I should do the PhD.
Thank you. Yeah, I can relate to wanting to go back to Cambridge. Beautiful city.
Agreed. I think we all loved it. Yes. That's very exciting to hear about your experiences. And in a way, you kind of all function as mentors now as well, in the way that you're coordinators for a SIG. I would like to know kind of what motivated you to take on this role.
We met in a way because we were all supervised by David Whitebread. David had this thing, that he was a great mentor. And when you arrived to Cambridge, he had a lot of PhD students. So he used to have meetings every month so we could have updates of our research. And also he was making sure that we became friends and a support for each other because we were coming from different countries. So it was a very important community, the PhD students of David. Everyone was jealous of this group, right? Because we had Christmas parties and we were supporting each other when someone had the Viva, PhD Viva, and things like that. When David passed away in April 2021, we decided that we had to do something to sort of carry his legacy. We always thought, because he always was bringing us to EARLI conferences. He was saying, no, you have to go to present your work in progress at jury and met the people you are studying. So we usually had party dinners and everything. It was a very good time socially between us two. So we decided that we had to do a SIG in play, so we could sort of keep this thing going on together and bring more people, more play researchers, and create an international community. So that community lived on after he passed away.
That's such a beautiful story to have it as a legacy to Mr. Whitebread. Maybe, Antonia, you want to add a bit to Valeska's story?
I think I feel that Valeska has covered all the important points. What I could perhaps add is that, so this came out of so we were all very saddened and very sad by David's passing. And that's when a WhatsApp group was created with all of his former students, all mentees. And I think that's where this was brought up. The other important point to emphasize is that because David was always so good at mentoring people, it's very important for us to support junior researchers as well. So when we first started, we had these online seminars where we would try to invite a senior and a junior researcher in the same, let's say, time slot. You need visibility, so you need the senior researcher to be there, but it's also really good to hear what the junior researchers have to say, and it's also a very good opportunity to support junior researchers.
Pablo, would you like to add something to that? Mr. Whitebread kind of was a role model, it seems to me. So what is it you kind of personally take from his mentoring and bring it to the SIG?
David was a was a very nice person, but also very, very funny. I mean, it was always making us laugh and teasing us. So I think that for me, it's very important. You know, sometimes some people didn't understand his humor, I have to say.
Too British.
Especially when they're pulling your leg, I think. But you know, if you took it with a pinch of salt, and you know, everything was super light and amicable, and I think, yeah, like every time we meet, the three of us, there is that, it's there. Like we have these kind of, we tease each other, you know, we are playful like that. We make jokes. I think that spirit, it's very important for the SIG.
David believed in us a lot. And I think when you were like saying, no, I can't do this, you know, in the middle of your PhD and your data collection is not working, he was saying, you can do this. You got here to Cambridge, you know, you earned this, you know, I'm sure you can do it. So in a way, he convinced us that we were able to, and we will have good jobs afterwards. And, you know, all the anxieties, he was like, and in a way, showing us that life was more than a PhD. That is something also that at least me as a mentor now, and I have PhD and master students too, I try to bring that into perspective, because sometimes when you're doing a degree, it's lonely as a PhD, you get lost, and the emotional management of that, you know, weight, it sometimes is heavy.
So David was not telling us that family is important. He was showing us that family is important, because, say, every summer we were invited to his family house with his family for a summer party. And also, like, whenever you would have a supervision with him, his first question was never about, you know, how is the draft going? It was, how are you? How are things? How is it going? The academic part was also going to come, and he was adamant that we were all stars to him, which is not always a usual thing to experience while doing a PhD. So yes, I'm pretty sure that it has affected both what's happening in terms of how we're interacting with the SIG and the SIG members, but it has also affected how we interact with our students, with our PhD students, with our master students. I think because that's what we experienced, I don't think we can take anything less than this.
I hear how much this personal encounter has kind of impacted who you are. How much do you think kind of being abroad? I don't know about your English beforehand. Now you have all really good command of English, but that might not have been the case beforehand. And you got to know other researchers from other cultures. How do you think that has maybe formed you as a mentor now and as a researcher?
I think definitely. For me, the Cambridge experience was life-changing, and not because it was such a big university, but because of the people I met. David and my fellow PhD students and other people I got the opportunity to meet there, just people from different, as you said, different languages, different religions, different perspectives. And it changed it forever, the way I look at life. I look at human relationships for sure. And in terms of English, yeah, I mean, I didn't speak English before that. So, but you get there and there is a place where everyone is coming with an accent, and also from far away, probably one step furthest away, I mean, Chile. But everyone comes from another place, and more far or close, but away from your family and from your safe net.
Culturally, as Valeska was saying, I think that's the biggest lesson you learn when you are studying abroad, especially for someone like me or Valeska, living in a country that's so far away, and then learning about different cultures, religions. I think that's quite interesting in the UK, being such a diverse, well, a lot of countries in Europe are super diverse, to be honest. But I think that was a big lesson, and it opens your mind.
I think that's what I was also going to say, Pablo. I mean, in Cyprus we generally speak English, so I had learned English before finishing high school, but being able to speak English and being able to write academic English, or communicate in proper academic English, are two very, very different things. So I definitely had some of those moments where I was teased a lot about having misspelled something, or I was doing my best, but still I was not a native English speaker. But it was actually very it was eye-opening to be in a community, let's say, not necessarily the University of Cambridge as a community, but at Cambridge as a community, and the people we met there, and different religions, backgrounds, things that you take for granted when you come from a very, very small country, let's say. I mean, Chile is a huge country, but Cyprus is a tiny country, like less than 1 million in terms of population.
We were talking about researcher and mentors, so the person, but now let's go to the area of research that you do in SIG28, play. I'm not going to ask to define play or game, because that would be a longer episode, I would say. How did what you're doing at SIG28 has affected learning and instruction in EARLI in recent years? What would you say about that?
I don't know if I think, but I hope we were positioning the subject of play, learning, and development. Because before, there were always like 1 or 2 papers about play, like a scatter around. We are a new SIG. This is the first SIG conference that is just us. We also had one SIG conference in 2024, but it was together with early childhood education. So I hope that really that makes the subject of play in at different ages, not only in early childhood, but during the lifespan, a subject that reunite researchers from different areas and different SIGs.
Since Valeska mentioned the conference, these are calculations that Pablo did the other day. And I think, Pablo, you were saying we're expecting around 100 participants at the conference from 25 different countries. So the conference is going to take place in Reggio Emilia at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia. So for us, it's very important that we're managing to bring so many people together as a very new SIG.
And also, I think we are kind of filling a space that nobody had taken before. There are a lot of associations that focus on games.
Video games?
Yeah, there are quite a bit of places around Europe, but none looks at play specifically. So anything that is kind of less digital, more analog, it hasn't been covered in a specific space.
Would you consider yourself playful persons?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think probably more like in an attitude to life, right? And like
Yeah.
I try to keep thinking that in a way life it's a big game. There's nothing for granted, and you think that everything is very serious, and if you do some things you're going to get other things, but life is not like that. There's a lot of unexpected surprises, good and bad ones. So I think the best thing is to be open to the experience and see how it goes. Of course, you can not plan anything, but you need to receive things the way as they come. And I think that's a very important thing about playfulness as an attitude to life, being flexible and taking the opportunities that life brings you.
I have transitioned to be more playful in the last 10 years. Part of it is because of my research. I think it's a privilege, for example, to look at children playing among themselves, and like realize like the beauty of it and the sophistication of it. Also, now I became a father 6 years ago of 2 beautiful twins. Kind of like I started having my own nursery at home. So that also kind of created, brought out more of my playfulness.
I think it's a privilege to be able to feel that you're more playful now compared to how playful you were 10 years ago. And I feel exactly the same, Pablo. Part of it is accepting that, being playful is actually a very important skill, but it's also like feeling that we have the knowledge about playfulness and how important that is, and that it's okay if I myself, let's say, am playful as a professor.
Is there any article or any other kind of distinction you would like to highlight to share with the audience in terms of kind of what was really something which you just highly evaluated, and why?
I'm just thinking about a piece of research I'm writing at the moment. I presented it at last EARLI conference. It's about digital games. I'm not a gamer myself, but I noticed that this is becoming a thing, a very strong type of play in children. And I just did a piece of research where I look at the frequency of play, of video gaming, and many characteristics of families, as well as trying to see how much video gaming predicted self-regulation or executive functions, specifically a year later in 7 to 9 year olds. The results were kind of really surprising for me. I was expecting, because I'm not a gamer myself, that video gaming would have a negative impact. For disadvantaged children, playing alone is something that actually has a negative effect, but playing with somebody else can have a positive predictive effect.
I do a lot of research in the classroom. So observing the children, video recording the children, and then analyzing their behaviors. But we have this more recent paper. It was presented at EARLI, and it's currently under review, that we're writing together with my colleague, Dr. Julia Delevando. And we're doing a secondary data analysis of data from IELS, so the International Learning and Child Wellbeing Study. We were looking at elements, let's say, of playfulness and how those are related to self-regulation and executive functions. And we see that playfulness is positively associated, of course, to self-regulation and executive functions, even when you account for children's SES and their home learning environment. So this is, to me, particularly important because it shows the relevance of playfulness and of allowing for play and allowing for playfulness in early childhood practice and in early childhood policy. Because in recent years, what we see is that we're trying to teach children potentially too much too soon, and we don't allow them to be as playful as they could be.
Very interesting. Yeah. Valeska, would you like to continue?
Yeah, I can talk about the paper I'm going to present in the conference in a few weeks, and that's been recently published last month in the Creativity Research Journal, which is also was a very surprising results, because we followed about 300 children from the beginning of pre-kindergarten to first grade, and we look at the trajectories of creativity. And there were a group of children, most of children increased a bit creativity in a visual task, but there were a group about 22% that increased rapidly between pre-kindergarten and first grade. And we look at the predictors of being part of that trajectory when you improved a lot your creativity. And we look at receptive and expressive language, working memory, narrative skills, and also the quality of fantasy play. And the only significant predictor was the quality of fantasy play at the beginning of pre-kindergarten.
I think you're all making a good work for your study fields. I think we and our listeners become very intrigued with the academic study of play. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so I'm hearing the three of you went to Cambridge, to the university. I only went to tour around the city, but you went to the university. You are telling me now that you're doing this longitudinal study with large samples, so very high profile academics. So how do you achieve this, being very high profile academics and life, so work-life balance?
And I am laughing already. I'm not sure, but I think it might be, if we're brutally honest, I think it's very difficult to achieve a work-life balance in academia. Extremely difficult. You, as an academic, but as well as a human being, you need to set your boundaries, which some of us have tried to set. It's usually after a very difficult patch that you learn that you need to set some boundaries, where you say, for example, I'll try not to work on the weekends, or, I'll try to spend an X amount of quality time with my family, and ensure that you work hard, but you also play hard. Playfulness, play, learning, and development.
Yeah. I'm also laughing, I guess.
We're all laughing here.
Yeah, everybody. Well, I had this idea before when I was doing my PhD. I had this idea of of course I can manage. Vale is also laughing right now because going back to David, I said to him, back in the time, but surely surely you can balance it, right? And he always laughed at me and said, yeah. He said to Valeska, Pablo still thinks that you can balance your family time or your private life with academia. And I think, I do try to, as Antonia was saying, to keep the weekends just for me and my family. But I see myself a lot of days working until very late. It has a lot to do with how many things you say no to, because you get a lot of interesting invitations and everything is so exciting. And it's part of us academics, right? We like to learn new things and find new things and experience different kind of areas. I think boundaries is the key word, and learning to say no, maybe learning to say yes in a way that it doesn't commit you totally, or that you can kind of help with some things somebody but not commit totally. I don't know, there's something to learn there, I think. Yeah,
I think it has to do with time and persistence, that every time that a paper gets rejected or you don't get a grant you wanted, that you just keep going. And a lot of things in terms of the tips you're saying, for me, it's finding joy and like remembering when I'm applying to a grant that this is something that I like doing. So instead of focusing in, oh, I have to do this perfectly, this is something I want to do, and connect with your inner motivation, because that makes you happier. And also about the boundaries, and I think they are very important. For me, I've been raising 2 kids by myself, so the boundaries are not easy to get. I mean, the kids get sick and you have to do the job anyway. So I work sometimes at night or weekends. But for me, it's getting what is more important first. So I can have a deadline, but it's the basketball game of my child and I want to go and see it, and I go and see it. And then I stay working until late. But what is in your life that you don't want to miss? Because the sad thing is you look back and you have missed the most important thing. So for me, it's like, for me, setting the boundaries is more like saying, no, I'm going to work until 6. It's more, what do I want to do in life? And that's first.
Do you have like a very kind of concrete personal tips, like when your paper gets rejected, it was something you do, like going running or doing performative art, something, doing music? Do you something which makes you think of something else other than family, maybe?
For me, the way to recharge is coming back to the people I love. I think that sort of make the sad part out of it, and thinking, yeah, you have these relationships, and with not only with your family, but for example, with your research partners, that you can, rebuild this again and do other things in the future.
I guess food is an important part in Chilean
Definitely.
like nature as well. You do not mention it, but I can hear it and I imagine it.
Food and wine, for sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
food
yeah.
and wine.
thinking about rejections and just, I think you just kind of develop this alter you that is like the person that is like, it's the person that gets the rejections and it's fine, and you kind of like soothe him. You say like, oh, it's fine, don't worry. Because it's always gonna be there, like as Valeska was saying. I mean, the rejections are outnumber the acceptances. I'm just really kind of grateful having this job where I can focus on researching something that I like. And as long as those rejections don't mean that I lose my job, everything is fine. I mean, in the end, colleagues will invite you to do some other things. I mean, you have plenty to do,
And I think perhaps there is scope for academics to start talking even more about the rejections, because rejections are more than acceptances or, successes. So even if you say you had a paper accepted at a top journal, this might still mean that it got rejected from 2 other top journals. Specifically, maybe for junior researchers, it should be pretty evident that not even, I'm assuming not even the top researchers in our field get, I don't know, but I mean, immediately accepted to something. Rejection is a part of being an academic, and you learn to live with it. You or your other self, Pablo.
I feel like we are in like in a self-help group right now.
That's the idea.
That's the
Yeah.
idea.
Somehow we are maybe as researchers. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, right now, this is
Yes.
great.
Yes. I think we have come to an end. It was very entertaining and nice to speak to you. And I'm looking forward to this episode, and I hope so you.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting us and taking the time. It's been great.
Thank you for your honesty. Yeah.
Yes.
Listeners, make sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and stay tuned for the exciting episodes we have coming your way. See you next time on the Early Research Stories podcast.